Yes, sir.
It was clothes folding.
When that
Clean up
music
your
started, you
room.
know to get up.
Yeah, yeah. It was go time. So, home economics.
All right. Welcome to another edition of Living a Rich Life. I am your host, Rich James, and here on Be Exposed Radio today, we're going to talk about some uncomfortable conversations. As I mentioned, here on Living a Rich Life, we intend to inform, inspire, and remind each other to live a rich life, and we do that based on 6 principles: good health, strong relationships, financial freedom, goals and achievement, extraordinary experiences, and philanthropy. Today, our topics of discussion are going to come across, some folks really don't have the knack for it. They don't have the ear for it. They don't believe it. We have two, actually 3 panelists. One's going to join us later. So let's, as I like to say, let's talk about it. My first panelist, she is a leadership coach, a public speaker, and founder of GEMS. Help me out, Miss Lanice Stevenson. Welcome. Thanks for joining.
Hello, hello, hello.
And our second panelist that's here with us today, he is the CEO and founder of Stand Up Baltimore, Mr. Derek Chase. How we doing, Mr. Chase?
Top of the day, Rich. I'm living a rich life. I'm Paul Lane.
I like that. That's that old school term. That's that old school term.
No question.
So first and foremost, I want to thank you both for joining. This is part 2 of Uncomfortable Conversations. I had some other panelists several weeks ago and figured with the recent events, it might be time to have that discussion again. What I would like to do is kind of get your thoughts, your opinions, and feelings on, certain things, racism being one of them, police brutality, the upcoming elections, and some socio-economic views, and anything else that comes to mind that you think we should discuss. So that's the plan for today. So I want to again thank you for joining, and let's get started. First and foremost, and we'll start with you, Lanice. Let's start with how as an individual have you been holding up during these crucial times, while dealing with concerns of racism, police brutality during the pandemic? So how are things going with you right now?
The way in which I would explain that is that I have had to find anchors in my life, things that I have control over or can control a little more than other things. And I like to stay on those things. So I use meditation. I practice yoga. I always eat healthy. And then I just give myself permission to experience the full emotions of whatever is happening. What I used to do was I would just ignore, let's say, Freddie Gray's passing, everything that happened with that. I would kind of just ignore it, stay cerebral, think of, how can we go into action without taking in the emotional heartbreak of those things in my community. I was always about, let's just act. At this point, I recognize that I can't truly be empathetic unless I fully experience whatever that incident is, and that I listen to the people who are most impacted by it. So to answer your question, you could literally sit and choose a topic because there are so many things happening right now. So if you talk about COVID, I have now had personal relatives that have been impacted by COVID. Mm-hmm. One of them passed away. And so instead of me saying, well, I'm so sorry it passed away, this and that, what can we do to help? I experienced that moment of pain. Right. Because I have to live in these experiences. But then I don't stay in those moments. That's why I use, meditation and yoga to help me to get through them. But it is so important for us to have those communal experiences.
Gotcha. So the experience kind of change your thought pattern there. Mr. Chase, tell us,
yes,
how you been holding up during these, these concerns? We have these concerns of racism, police brutality. How are you holding up during this pandemic with this, this current situation we're in?
You know what, Rich? It's the same situation that I found myself walking to Morgan's campus in 1990. So, I've never stopped driving change and transformation since I've been introduced to the fact that there was a struggle. So I really didn't have to change anything. You know what I'm saying? My life, I've literally dedicated my life to how do we transform ourselves, first as individuals, dedicating myself to myself, and then dedicating myself through the process of expanding that from myself to family, from family to the community that I have relationships with, including inspiring other people to be a part of the fight, to the larger community, to state, federal, local, and internationally. So I've been engaged in that my entire life. So I really have not had to change anything, to be honest with you, bro. I mean, it's just good to see other people, having the opportunity or taking the opportunity to demonstrate that they too have the ability to impact transformation and change. So it's been good just to watch other people to kind of join in directly, even though people have always indirectly done things. We're more in a more direct action space. So I haven't done anything different.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good segue, right? So from your perspective, we're doing things and some folks are coming on board. But there's some things that as Black people we're struggling with, and people for some reason, and I'll say, either it's white folks, they don't understand when it comes to the Black community. And what do you feel is necessary? And Chase, I'll start with you this time. What do you feel is necessary to ensure the police nationwide follow protocols for decency and fairness when it comes to the treatment of Black people?
Well, I think that, the way that America works by virtue not of its heart, but its pocketbook. All right. So the first and foremost, we must make it a national policy for police to have the same level of insurance that doctors carry, that anybody that's responsible for life and death. All right. Even if you're driving your vehicle, right, you have to have personal insurance, right, to drive a car. So we first and foremost have to require, as a national policy, all police officers who are up for the challenge of being a police officer to carry that insurance. All right.
Well, I know that. So let's pause there. So, Lanice, I see you shaking your head, and I'm kind of like, that's fascinating. I've never heard anything. That's one reason I have you on here, Chase. The insurance piece. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with having some level of insurance for police officers?
I think the vetting process for police officers should change. I think the people who are in power in policing should not be there, because most of the time they have been career officers who have been promoted because they've been fighting crime. But the way in which they've been fighting crime has always been aligned with the politics of the day, right? When Black children were super predators, police officers who were managing those super predators and putting them in jail, they were promoted as a result of doing those things. I think we need to go back to, I can't even say go back, because if we go back, we're going back to the same thing. We need to move forward. And one thing, like what D. Chase was saying, economics rules the day, period. So we have to have economic power, not just political power. As we saw when President Obama was in office, he was in office, but there were still things that was happening. And it was because we are not the ones who are funding the lawmakers, funding the politicians the way we should. So the laws that are made, the laws that are enforced, they are not aligned with us. The system was made so that we could not have equal access to those.
And that's us as Black people. So, because I also heard venting to police. All right, so I want to go back to Chase, because I want you to finish your thoughts. So the insurance piece, I heard two things now: insurance, vetting the actual individuals trying to become police officers. You want to finish your thought, Chase, or was that?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, so in all transparency, I've had a very interesting perspective, because after the uprising in Baltimore, I became the facilitator for officer wellness for sergeants through commissioners for Baltimore City Police. So I had the opportunity not only to be a community activist, but to be behind the blue wall and have those very direct conversations with those officers, to be in their personal space, to be to able to probe them in a way where very few people get that opportunity. So going back to the question, the second thing is training. All right. If you are going to be a doctor, okay, at minimum, you're going to go through 8 years of training to be a doctor. If you're going to be a police officer, all right, and hold life and death in your hands, you're going to go through 6 weeks of training. And you're going to be put on the street. You're going to be expected to know how to manage all kinds of situations. All right. That's not just unfair to the community. That's really unfair to police officers. Right. So there is the level of training. Because the police were crafted literally as a counterpunch to slavery, to support the runaway slave phenomena. All right, there's always been an element. Well, not even an element. You know, at the foundation of American policing, right, is and lies racism. And because the police officers are following the policies that are being established nationally by virtue of the state, as well as by virtue of the city. So the other part of this in which we have to look at modern day policing, and we have to look at that not as a process of managing Black people in particular, or poor people, to stay in certain areas, all right, and not get out of control. But we have to look at policing in a manner of making sure that when there is a crisis, okay, and this gets into how policing is funded, that the right people are responding to the crisis. So we have to rethink policing. All right. Everything that happens is not a police issue. If me and my wife are in a fight, I don't need the damn police. Right? What is the police going to do to two people who love each other today, who fight tomorrow, and love each other again the next day? Why is a police officer there? So we have police officers again responding to issues and calls where it should be someone else. We should have a family crisis division of the police department. When there is a domestic dispute, that's who's called. All right. So without going through every aspect of, police reform, if we just focus on those three things, looking at, as I said, the department, how it's funded, me reorganizing it to be able to respond to very specific issues. If we can look at that, if we can look at the training element, ensuring that the training is longer, as well as, for instance, if you break your hip, you go through an orthopedics doctor, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't have the same police officer responding to everything, and it should reflect the same way in the police department, right? And then, last, it goes back to what I said. People are accountable when they know that their personal bottom line is affected, right? If I know that, although I may want to slap the shit out of this child, but if I know I'm gonna get sued, good chance I'm not gonna slap the shit out of this child. I'm gonna follow something else. So police officers need to feel that pressure, and not only feel that pressure, because it's not just, I'm not anti-police. Let me go on the record. I am not anti-police. All right. I am pro-community. All right. So pro-community gives me the ability to see things with a very transparent lens and to associate responsibility where I see it. Because just in the same manner, and I'll close on this, that police must be accountable to policing. Community has to be responsible for managing itself, right? When you have a community that does not self-manage, now you're asking for an outside force, all right, to come in and to do for you what really you should have things in place for yourselves. So I'll leave on that note, not leave the
No.
conversation, but I'll exit on that note.
Okay.
So,
Lanice, you want to add
Yes,
something?
I want to ask you a question, because when we talk about communities being able to manage themselves, but then we look at the disinvestment of communities and the overinvestment of other communities, that leaves certain communities at a disadvantage automatically, and then we blame the victim. And so until we have equity, not even equality, but equity in terms of funding and things like that, how can we hold certain communities responsible when their needs are not met? The funding just doesn't give them enough to meet their own needs.
Right. So I'll respond by saying, with no disrespect, if you look at Black folks, okay, in 1865, right?
Yep.
So there is Emancipation Proclamation that takes place in 61, 62, whatever the year, 61, I believe. All right. And then there's the passing of the 13th Amendment that happens in 1865. Two very different things, because the Emancipation Proclamation did not free all slaves. All people held in the conditions of slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation allowed those people who were fighting on the side of the North to be free. But if you were in the state of Maryland in 1864, you were still under the conditions of slavery. All right. So now you have the 13th Amendment. Okay. And when we look at the 13th Amendment, and when they ask those brothers and sisters, what do we need to do? We need to give you. All right. This is where the whole idea of 40 acres and a mule comes from. What do you need for you to have freedom? And first thing they said, give us land. You give us land and we will be free. All right. We will self-manage. Okay.
Mhm.
Now we all know that did not happen. That land was granted and it was taken back. But this is what did happen. All right. So between 1865 and 1877, Black folks began to control every aspect of their lives. All right. Went into something that's called Black Reconstruction, elected their own officials all the way up to, some people even say president, vice president, senators, congressmen, local officials. Right. And what happened is, because they understood their power of the numbers, they utilized the power of being in the majority, okay, to access and allocate resources. Now, in a city like Baltimore, that is still very much possible. All right. Why? Because we are still 66% of the population, and that's racial. That doesn't even take into consideration those of other people who would align because they have a similar story and a similar need that may not have been, would not be classified as African American. All right. So it's not so much of what someone will do for us that'll change us. It's the power that we recognize that we already have to organize ourselves that changes everything for us. I'll give you another clear example. All right. Okay. How much money do you have in your bank account? Don't tell me. All right. How much money do you have in your bank account, Rich? Don't tell me. All right. How much money do I have in my bank account? Now we all three of us know each other. Okay. Now, collective economics will tell us, okay, let's put our money together and let's control some aspect of our lives. I don't need a loan from anybody. I have enough money. If we practice collective economics, I have enough money already to do what I'll go out of my community to ask for. So when you are a self-determined people, all right, you determine the quality of your life based upon the quality of your relationships, right? So Black people have a relationship deficit. They do not have an economic deficit. They have $1 trillion. They don't need to ask for anything else. We just don't have the understanding of what it means to be a quality community. We don't function as community. So therefore, we always are looking for some form of outside interference, some money that's going to be tied to some form of string that, again, we will have to manage. All right, we would have to manage that relationship because with every bit of money, there comes a string. All right. So I just don't believe in this idea that we represent some powerless people who always need somebody to rally, to write a bill, to give us what we already have. A man, if you walk into my house, all right, and you plan to control my household and my family, I guarantee you, I'm going to do one or two things. All right. I am going to take control of my house. All right. Or I am going to die in the process. So that is a different level of manhood and womanhood. So Black people in this country do not function out of the space of true, authentic power that taps directly into their woman, their God-given manhood and their God-given womanhood. We just don't respond like that.
Lanice made a lot of points there. You wanna say something back?
I study life through the ecological systems theory. So I look at ecosystems. And of course, our kids have been privileged. I mean, we are all privileged people on this call. However, I was an educator for many, many years, and I'm at Hopkins right now. So I see privilege, and down the street, I see something very, very, very different. And so if I can go out my door and I can go down the street and support my Black business, and that Black business is providing food, healthy food for me. People in 21215 don't have that. There's a reason why that business was able to be there. That person had resources, I had resources. I get what you're saying, D, but in the hood, most of the time, how much are those people making? They're not even at the poverty level. So who are they giving their money to? They're giving.
I'm gonna push back on you because I grew up in 212.
So hold on.
I grew up in 21215, and when I grew up there, all of the stores were Black.
Look. So Chase, so hold on. I knew that was coming. Let's pause.
Okay,
Chase, pause. Right. So this is good conversation, and for those that are just tuning in, we are talking about social economics. We went from police brutality, which kind of trickles on to social economics. And I knew that was coming, Chase, because I know Chase grew up in the 21215. And the point that you made earlier, though, as a people, we know our economic worth, some of us, if not most of us now in this day and time, but it's a matter of folks really coming together from that relationship spot. So I'm gonna let Lanice, she's gonna finish her comments, then Chase, as you get ready to, who's going to soccer practice? Sion?
Oh, you're on mute, Chase.
You're on mute.
Okay.
You're still on mute. Look, Monty, take him off mute.
Messiah is going to practice.
Messiah's going to practice. All right, so you get ready to get in the car and stay on, because don't make me come get you.
No, I'm right there.
All right, so Lanice, go ahead, finish your thought.
The point that Chase made was that we all have money in the bank. Very true. We all can put our money together. I could invest my money from my bank account right now in a new business. I've done it over and over and over again. But you can't dismiss that I had access to certain things. Now, I don't have to go to a bank at this point. I had to build a business to make enough money. I had to know how to start a business. I had to have people who were around me who knew how to do that. There are a lot of things that got us where we are. And granted, I know that Chase was in 21215, but Chase had access to, I don't care what he says. So if I am right now, today, living in 21215, and I am on social services, so I'm receiving SNAP benefits or whatever, I don't have access to enough Black businesses within my proximity to recycle my money. What I'm saying is there's a barrier in place. How do we get Black businesses to be able to be in certain areas? And how do we get those areas to thrive? Until we tackle that, and I get what Chase is saying, but there are so many things. And if Upper Park Heights is getting money, and you look at how many people they are on social services, and look at how their communities look, and you come across Northern Parkway, and you have people who are also on social services, but their neighborhoods don't look like that, there's something wrong. When you look at the allocation of resources for those communities, and granted, I am excluding the fact that they also have generational wealth in, Jewtown, but I want to hear what Chase has to say about that.
Rebuttal.
Can't hear you. You got to unmute yourself.
Monty, take him off. Take him off, Monty.
Uh-oh.
We on. All right. So, yeah, we want to hear from Chase now. Okay. You got a messed up, but while Chase is getting situated, because again, Monty, you can take him off mute. But here's my thought, or here's my question. Right? It has to start somewhere. I think within again. All right, there go Chase. Chase, you ready to get your comment back?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the response. We cannot argue, no one can argue that we have not gotten what we're supposed to get in this country. I'm not arguing that point. Okay. All right? That's clear. I mean, we can just start with slavery. Just the fact that we were forced to do something for 300 years and receive nothing, didn't have the ability to transfer wealth because of the conditions of slavery. We then met with a federal law in 1877, Compromise of 1877, that allows the states to create laws to put us back in another form of chainless slavery, and allows an organization such as the Ku Klux Klan to terrorize us for 100 years, denying us not only liberty, but literally denying us our lives, because what people don't understand about the Jim Crow era is that the Ku Klux Klan assassinated 17,000 Black leaders. They weren't just assassinating people. They were assassinating the politicians. They were assassinating the preachers. They were assassinating anyone with the civil organizations. They were assassinating the entrepreneurs, and it was legal for them to do so. So they terrorized us for 100 years, all right, literally, and assassinated our leaders, both on a national scale, but also on a local scale. Then we go into 1964, where there's some element of opportunity where we're supposed to get an equal share with the Civil Rights Bill. So they recognize within the Civil Rights Bill that when they did the report in 1964, they came back with what's called a policy of benign neglect. So what benign neglect is that your problems are so they're so intense that we don't have the will to resolve them. So what we will do is have a policy where we'll act like they don't exist, and we'll leave you in the condition that you're in and not help you. All right, that is the policy of America, 1964, after the study on poverty that was done by Lyndon Johnson. So right after that, it goes into an assassination period where they assassinate Medgar, they assassinate Martin, they assassinate Malcolm X. They leave us in another leadership crisis. And in the midst of that leadership crisis, there's a Black Power movement that rises up that not only threatens the America that is local or national, but there is an international element that there's a threat upon. So the Central Intelligence Agency becomes involved. And what they begin to do is to create a policy where they begin to drug our communities. Okay. So from 1969 up until the current time, there's been a constant attack in the form of drugs to destabilize our communities. So there will never be an argument from me, all right, that they don't owe us. But one of the things that I always tell people is, if you're going to go and fight a championship fight, then you better train, all right? And if you don't have top-notch facilities, all right, then you better train with what you have. And if you train with what you have and be a people of faith, God has already determined that we are the victors. If my people who are called by my name would just humble themselves and pray, all right, we seek and go back to our original selves. God has already positioned us, all right, although we may be one of the quote unquote, we're not even that. We just think of ourselves as not one of the wealthiest people in America. Technically, we are. We are the most well-educated, homogeneous people in America, in particular, Black women, the most educated, homogeneous group in America. Understand that the Latino community is not a homogeneous community. They're Colombians, they're Venezuelans, they're El Salvadorians. They're not a homogeneous community. We look at them as Latino. They're not just one community, they are multiple communities. However, those of us who are the sons of former slaves and who are the sons of former slaves, we are a homogeneous group. And we are one of, if not the largest homogeneous groups in America. But what my point is, we are the most educated. We are the only group, all right, of the quote unquote minorities who have a college system of over 140 colleges that have been dedicated to our struggle, all right, that are in positions right now to take the brain power that is in those universities, all right, and the resources that are in those universities and attack our problem. We don't have a resource problem. We have a strategy problem and we have a leadership problem. So those people who have thought about this in my generation, all right, it is time for us to come to power. Now, I'm speaking as I declared myself on October 3rd, 1997, as the first president of the world, all right, and the ambassador to Mars. But the qualifier for that is that I have to emerge as the leader of Black people. So today, I've never ran for this office, but I've just elected myself today. What's the day, son? Whatever day it is, October 26th.
26.
August 26th, 2020. I have just elected myself by a vote of 1-0 as the leader of Black America. Now, as y'all leader, I'm not speaking to y'all no more as an equal. As y'all leader, what I'm simply saying, in the words of Booker T. Washington, you know, cast your buckets where you are. In the words of Marcus Garvey, rise up, you people. All right. In the words of Dr. King, dream. In the words of Malcolm X, don't turn the other cheek. Fight with those who fight with you. In the spirit of all of the ancestors that we've had, I come to you in that spirit. And as your leader, we are not only going to get what has been promised to us, all right? We're going to give ourselves what we must promise ourselves.
Okay.
We're not going to get what was taken from ourselves, but we're going to get what has been promised to ourselves. So, you know, we just have to unify. We have to unify ideas. I mean, there's a plan in place, a working plan in place right now. So I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet on that.
No. So because first, I always enjoy talking to Chase. I always enjoy talking because just, you know, the conviction, the power, and the words, they're moving on top of the actions that I see this brother doing. Now, my thing is, right, how for those that are not as fortunate, not as driven, right, not as driven as you, not as driven as me, because again, I come from Marble Hill Projects, New York City. I know all about food stamps, all that good stuff. My mother came down to college, Morgan State University, wanted me to have an education. She paid cash money the first year. And I had opportunities to go to other schools with scholarships, but I chose Morgan because it was a Black school. But she came down here, paid cash money, went home with $3 in her pocket. That's what she'll tell you. But she paid the whole tuition for the entire year. You know, Lanice, you know, you have a story as well. How do we get those individuals that feel that, again, what we've been through as a people, all they have in their mindset, right? Because I think this is a result of behavior that, again, was instilled with us. why black folks are always fighting with black folks, why we are not a collective like we should be, because ultimately, as a collective, we would be, and I hate using the word minority and a majority, but we would be the majority if we acted as a collective in all areas. What's your thoughts on that?
Whew. First of all, let me give a church round of applause to D, because he took us back through history. I'm like over here standing with him. Yes, brother, give it to him, because he can break it down in a very simple way, the major things that have happened. And I'm so happy that he talked about the CIA and their mission to ensure that our communities were filled with drugs. So number one, we have to become healthy. You can't do anything without being healthy. And remember when the first question that you asked me was, how am I dealing right now? And I said, I have to anchor myself in things that I can control. Prayer, meditation, yoga, those things. But anyway, to get back to your question, we have to be able to, number one, meet people where they are. And I say that I'm gonna go back to actualize or operationalize what I'm saying. So I've been studying the education system for 20 years. I was a product of the education system. Education did a lot for me. But as I started to study education as a whole system, I started to really be able to deconstruct it and understand institutional whiteness. The reason why I did so well in education is because I started to adopt some of those philosophies and beliefs along the way. I had to unlearn those things. And it's a continuous process, because some of my thoughts, I'm like, whoa, that don't make any sense. And it's not egregious kind of thoughts, but those thoughts of superiority and supremacy do come in to play. So the very first thing we have to do is change the systems that interact with our children every single day. Because if those systems, and they are made to ensure that our children do not feel like they belong, and we've talked about belonging before, that they are not getting the resources that they need. You can't talk about drugs being infused into a community unless you're talking about children who were born addicted to drugs and may have problems that they need addressed. If you're not talking about the breakdown of the family, and now the children have problems that they need to address, period. And the whole point of what I was saying about disinvesting in communities, it also has to do with the amount of money that's going to those schools. And if the schools are not getting the resources that they need, then the children that are then maturing to be adults don't have not just the money. And I wasn't talking about resources as just in money. I'm talking about training. If Baltimore is run by Black people, but we still have Black people that have all the issues, you got to help me with this, because the Black people are in power. Well, they look like they're in power. So we have to be able to go back to the basics and to train. I agree, D. We do have to train people, but they have to see that something is wrong.
Right.
A lot of times people don't even see that something's wrong. That's an excellent point, which leads me again to the whole when it comes to racism, right? So now we talk about Black Lives Matter, right? Because Black Lives Matter. You have those individuals. You got folks that say all lives matter, but Black Lives Matter because Black lives are the ones that's in danger, right? Is that a safe? What are your thoughts on that comment, Chase? Right, Black Lives Matter, but then you have individuals that say all lives matter.
So the interesting part about Black Lives Matter is I understand it, but when I look at what's happening out in Portland, I don't know what that is. That's not our struggle. Right. So if that's Black Lives Matter, I'm not part of it. I'm not. That's not. When you study the leaders of our people, all right. So I'm an avid student of history, and I believe that we've had scholars who've given us a clear pathway forward. And in the clear pathway forward, what a lot of what they're doing right now is not a part of it. Right. Mm-hmm. So that is great that they have agitated and have a listening ear. But when I see the Black Lives Matter being commercialized in the NBA, when I see Black Lives Matter being commercialized in the NFL, when I can go into 7-Eleven and I don't know who even made the face mask and it says Black Lives Matter. Like, what now? What? Like, so you decentralize our struggle again? Okay, George Soros gave $150 million to the Black Lives Matter movement. $150 million. All right. McKissick, Delray McKissick, all right, who is right out of Baltimore, is a part of the inner circle. When the last time you seen him? When the last time he's created sat down with the leaders who are in Baltimore to craft a strategy to elevate the city of Baltimore, let alone Black people in Baltimore?
Mm-hmm.
So I hear what you're saying. Some aspect of it I respect. But again, when you go back fundamentally at the document, when you look at the document that was published on the original website,
Mm-hmm.
I have some concerns.
Right.
I have some concerns because I don't know what you're fighting for.
As do I. I mean, I think the concept of Black Lives Matter, and that's it, because we know it is an organization, but they wouldn't get no money from me because, again, I'm not necessarily sure and clear on what your objective is. So that's as in, did you want to comment on that, Louise?
Yeah, I would. So Black lives do matter, and it is important to proclaim that. I'm not saying that we should support that organization, but what I am saying is we should support whatever policies and practices in our local community are translating into Black Lives Mattering. So one thing that I do appreciate about it, because I'm in the inner circles of superintendents and the school districts across the country, I know that all that protest and all that chaos that has happened has catalyzed a mindset shift. We have made it an imperative, a moral imperative, to ensure that learning spaces, and the school is nothing but an extension of the community. The learning spaces and the communities where those schools sit are getting what they need. So I cannot dismiss the impact of the protest, the impact of putting Black Lives Matter in spaces where white people become uncomfortable. So when Trump is saying,
there's no disagreement with that.
Because it actually, I'm trying to tell you, I sit and I talk to superintendents and we talk about this. And I have been doing this work forever. And that does not happen. I sit in leadership councils at Hopkins and we actually don't just talk about it. It has created a space where we now can mobilize and do the things that I've been yelling about for years. So I think that the organization is one thing, but the idea that Black Lives Matter, absolutely.
So let me say this. So that's an excellent point in which, having that in front of white folks who are quick to say all lives matter, because all lives do matter, but the Black lives are the ones that's in danger, hence Black Lives Matter. Why is it that folks, and we'll say, some white people, when it comes to Black people, they struggle with certain things and being compared. Now, stay with me on this one. White folks smoking weed, they were called hippies, right? Back in the days, right? Black folks smoking weed, they now thugs. Whites on welfare, they were considered poor. Blacks on welfare, they were considered lazy, right? And this is a favorite of mine because we all college educated. Girls Going Wild. Y'all remember Girls Going Wild?
Oh yeah, I do.
Girls Going Wild. Those were good old college days. Now we have Black women twerking a dance, and they're called whores, right? And here is a good leading to what I'm talking about, the police brutality. Whites torch cop car and all. I'm not making this up, right? This has all happened. White cops, whites torch cop cars and destroy property after a baseball game. Guess what they're called? Rowdy. Blacks torch cop cars after a cop gets away with murder. They're called savages. Why do some white folks struggle with that when it comes to comparing Black people?
I'm gonna let you do this one first, Chase, and then I'm gonna come in.
Okay.
To live in America and really almost to live anywhere in the world, whether you're Black or white, you are to some degree a racist, even if it's towards yourself,
Okay.
because white supremacy have been so well woven into every fabric of our identities
Mm,
that it makes it very difficult for us to shake it, right? So when when Black people left slavery, there was no antecedent. There was no class that allowed us to go through a process to remove the painful scars and memories and nor was there time for us to heal from the wounds of being an enslaved community of people.
Mm.
And with that being said, when white people left slavery, from holding our people under the conditions of slavery, there was nothing to check them, to check their behavior, to check their ideas, to check their attitude. They didn't even recognize that there was a problem.
Mhm.
They submitted because they had to submit. They submitted. When you look at the document of Abraham Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation,
Proclamation.
in his own words, he said, I don't believe that Black people are equal. I am only moving in this direction to save the Union. So therefore, white people have only functioned in a manner of what was best in their best interest, not in any way, shape, or form to really consider what actually has happened. And the beauty of the Black Lives Matter movement, because I'm not just a critic, I support it also. All right. But I believe that we don't have to support every aspect of anything, and we must be critical of everything.
Mm.
The part that I respect about the Black Lives Matter movement, and I respect more of what I don't respect or understand, is that it has created a certain level of sensitivity and forced a conversation, whether a desired conversation or an undesired conversation, where we can really deal with the psychological impacts of a community who once enslaved another community and continue to create policies around that continued dominance. And in addition to a people who have been completely harmed and destabilized. So, to your point, we're in a space now. This is where we're supposed to be. All right. We're in a space now where we must do a couple things. All right. I'm 1 second. We must first and foremost, while everybody else is out there saying Black Lives Matter, who are supporters of us, we must come together and have a centralized plan of what we want to get as a result of it. It cannot be a willy-nilly, vanilly of everybody just doing whatever they think is right, so that we can have some semblance in the space that they find themselves in with white people who have power. No, we can't do that. It has to be a group of us, all right, nationally and internationally, who see our transformation is not nationalistic, but diasporic.
Okay.
All right, because white supremacy was not the borders of white supremacy is not America. And when you begin to go to Liberia, or whether you in Angola, or whether you are in London, whether you in Paris, whether you in Haiti, whether you in Jamaica, you will see all of the fallout, and I'm calling it fallout because it's like nuclear waste. All right, you will see all of the fallout of white supremacy. So therefore, we must begin to organize, not just nationally. We have to organize diasporically and determine exactly what we want as a result of this, and determine what is the relationship that we want other people, other cultures, other nations to have with us as a result of this. Other than that, we will lose this moment.
Okay.
I could not agree more.
Yes.
And what Chase described was institutional whiteness. When he talked about we all are racist in a certain and I don't even say in a certain aspect, we all are racist. We all have adopted the mindset. It is so entrenched in who we are, and then in everything we listen to. I mean, it is in everything. When we think about what do we passively listen to, it's our music, is what we are watching on TV and what we're listening to, the images that we see, that all plays into the same narrative of whiteness. And until we, and honestly, I had to go through a transformation. Like I said, I had to unlearn certain things that I didn't even see that reflected whiteness. And I had to explicitly call it out. And I had to have my friends hold me accountable for it. Because I would say, well, why couldn't that person do that? They received the same opportunities. They came from all those things. And I was disconnected from all of the things that I could not see. And so now when I'm helping school districts create policies, we are explicitly looking at the things that they can't see. And so that's why I think that we definitely are able, if we do it right, to move forward. So Chase, I agree, it should be an international effort because slavery and white supremacy is an international effort.
So let me ask this question, right? So we talked about race. Is there something just as a good old fashioned, and I'll keep it real simple, good old fashioned human race? You be good to those and be good to each other as human beings, right? Is there such a thing?
Well, race is a social construct. It is
Yes,
not
sir.
real. It is only made real because of the power and the white supremacist construct. There's no possible way that what is race, right? And why did, Chase, you want to bless us with where did race come from and why did it start?
Oh yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if you plan to, we actually have to go back really and look at what happened with the Hittites.
Yep.
All right. So when we look at the Hittites and the Hittites invasion on Kemet, all right, we really begin to see our first our first threads of racism in those early wars before it actually became a complete theory. It became a complete theory about 500 years ago. All right. But ultimately, it was a battle of cultures who were without against cultures who were perceived to have it all. All right. So we have to understand that racism in the form that we understand it comes out of a classical construct, all right, of Greeks and Romans and Gauls and Celtics and Cometians and the Dogon and these ancient classical clashes that happened that ultimately led to a plan of how do you bring a deprived people, meaning white people, all right? How do we bring a deprived group of people into prominence? So it was the idea of how to escape the death that they were guaranteed based upon the conditions that they lived in that created the mentality of one who would be willing to suppress everybody and everything to survive. All right. So because we've had the opportunity to examine white people in a manner in which they have not examined themselves, right? They never had to examine themselves because, bottom line, if you have what we call a food stamps, all right, and the unlimited food stamps, you can just keep going to the refrigerator because white people are subsidized people. Their whole world has been subsidized by their racism. So they don't understand that their whole existence is welfare because policies and procedures have been put in place to ensure that they have had opportunities and other people have been denied those opportunities. That is welfare. Right? So, I'd like to say is that, this whole idea of race, it's such a small thing. We really have to move to, and this is the challenge of this age, in this era, we have to move back into culture. All right. So when you look at the Italian, you don't look at them as a race of white people. You look at them as a group of people who have a dance, who have a food, who have a seasoning, who have a cultural a way to marry, a cultural way to dissolve marriage. The same thing with people who are in other cultures around the world. So we have to, as a part of rethinking racism, is to remove the idea of Black, white, Chinese, Latino, and we have to go back into what cultural community did you originate? And that gives you the opportunity to be more in a listening space. Because now when I'm not painting you loosely with the brush of being white, I now give you the opportunity to present yourself in a way that, you know, disputes whatever preconceived notion that I had about white people. Because you're telling me, no, I'm not white, I'm Italian. I'm not white. My grandmother and grandfather was German. We make Al Britain the same thing with us. All right. So we got a lot of work to do. I'll be quiet on that note.
So can I just connect what I said earlier to what Chase just said?
Absolutely.
So he said that white people are a subsidized people. They are a welfare people. That means the taxes that we pay have gone to them. My whole point in saying that we have disinvested in our neighborhoods was that when I pay my taxes, local, state, federal, they're not going back to those neighborhoods. Black people need to be a subsidized people, meaning that policies have to be there. Just like when we talk about redlining, the policies help white people. We need policies to help Black people. Okay. We deserve that, period. I'm not asking for a handout, but we deserve policies that help us. And every single civil rights policy that has happened has been fought in court to loosen that policy.
Right. Okay. So that's good. We had some great conversation. I knew I had the right folks on here. So for those watching and listening, again, this is Living a Rich Life. We're having uncomfortable conversations. We have Lanice Stevenson, Derek Chase on the panel, and we're having some good conversation talking about police brutality. We touched on racism. We touched a little bit on equality and equity and so many different things. Let's talk about that. When you mention policies, you know what I think of. So I think of American politics. So let's talk about our vote, right? Our vote as the Black community. Where do you feel we are as a whole as it pertains to the upcoming election in regards to choosing a leader for the next 4 years? So where do you feel we are as a whole? And when I say whole, I'll say as the Black community.
So my thoughts are independent thoughts, meaning that there are certain Democratic thoughts that I agree with and ideals, and there are certain Republican ideals that I agree with.
Okay.
I think that our two-party system has ruined a whole lot of things, because then by the time we have to vote on someone, I might not want that person. Now, I'm not saying that this year I don't want the person, but I'm just saying in general, we don't have the way the system is set up. I might not want that person, but then I had to choose the one that's not as bad as the other.
I heard the term, the lesser of two evils.
Yes. So the whole process that gets them there, the primary process, and who's running it?
Right.
And,
right.
Why don't they reflect the ideals of the people? They're still elitist ideas often. I mean,
okay.
That's at the local level, at the state level, at the national level. Same deal.
Okay. I want to pose this question to you, Chase. Between the current presidential candidates, Trump and Joe Biden, who do you feel would be most likely to adhere to the needs of the Black community, and why?
Is that the question?
Yes, the question is, between Trump and Biden, who do you feel would most likely adhere to the needs of the Black community, and why?
I think in this election cycle, I think it's 50-50, to be honest with you. I mean, you get a little bit more with Kamala because, she's coming out of the struggle, like literally. Like, people talk about her as being, having the life of an immigrant, but she was raised as a black woman, period. You know what I'm saying? Went to HBCU. You know, if you listen to her stories, she's reflective of a black life. So I think Kamala edges that conversation out because she speaks from a space of authenticity, just by virtue of her own being. However, you know, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. All right. So
You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate.
right. So right now, we should be negotiating our asses off. All right. Because we got 60 days to negotiate the best deal ever, bruh. Listen, I talked to some white folks, some very rich billionaire white folks the other day. All right. And I gave them the blues. Right. And I'm not going to get into who it is.
Right.
And I told them, I said, look, y'all are billionaires. And you can't act as if you earned it all. You cannot. I said, because my grandfather just did not have the same opportunity as your grandfather. You have the responsibility of balancing. This is a real conversation that I have with billionaires in this city. I said, you have to understand that we're not fighting in this race for equality. That was what our parents fought for. We are fighting for equity, and we are going to get it. And you must see it as in your interest for us to get it. All right? So as you begin to evolve from this space of Black Lives Matter and, you know, your democracy to some degree is threatened because of the instability of our push forward, hey baby, come to the table. But you got to come to the table. When we leave the table, we're not leaving the table as minorities. We're not doing minority deals anymore.
Right.
We want equal access to everything. And in some cases, we don't even want equal access.
We want more.
Because there's a debt.
Yeah.
All right. And if you can understand that, all right, then we have the opportunity to come together and really emerge as a country who not only have the wealth, but has the conscience to do it right. And that's where we get into the spiritual idea of the stone that the builder refuses will be the head cornerstone. That's us, but we have to dictate that. And the model of what that looks like does not come out of Oakland. It does not come out of Portland. It does not come out of Chicago. The model of what that looks like comes out of Baltimore. So this conversation, Rich, is on point and in time. What I'm calling for is the Baltimore Area Leadership Summit so that we can create the system, the structure, and the policies that can be duplicated all over the world and all throughout the country to make sure that human beings across the board get what they're supposed to get. I'm gonna put myself on mute because I gotta open up the door.
Right. Okay. Lanice, you want to add it?
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes I already know what D gonna say, so I'll be like, D, I'm gonna pass it over to you. Work that thing.
I mean, absolutely. I think, you know, because that is a good point, right?
Yeah.
We're in a position now, Baltimore being a major Black city, to really make some changes, and this is the opportunity, and this is the time to do that. And I
agree. A really good point that I think we need to elevate. It has to be. We have to show it is in the economic interests of people in power for them to do what's right. When you look at any leadership theories, when you look at leadership transformation, it is all about making sure that people who are in power understand that whatever that change is in the economic interest of them. And that is based on capitalism, right? And so if we got to think the way that the people in power think to outsmart them. And Dee also made a good point that we have had no choice but to study white people, but they don't know themselves. I sit and train people all day on equity and culture proficiency and race. And the majority, I would say about 90% of them are white people. And they struggle in the beginning understanding what whiteness is. They don't even think that they are, like they have a culture, because their culture is the dominant culture. you don't have to think about anything. And so when we start to really deconstruct things, initially they feel offended or guilty and all these other things. I'm like, no, you need to unlearn these things. This is etched in who you are, and you have been promoted once again to the highest power. You've been given access because you abide by these rules, these cultural norms, and just being able to have them understand that everything that has gone on in their lives has been to their benefit, even if they grew up in poverty. I mean, you could talk about everything, right?
Right.
When systems are built for you, but then they're like, they start to think, well, does that mean that I got where I got? And am I smart? You know, they really start to have some self-concept issues, because I'll say, you got to really think about that. How'd you get into that school? Was your SAT score the best? How'd you get there? How'd you get that job? How'd you get promoted? So it really makes them really rethink things. And I say, well, if you got all those things, who's denied access to those things who they may have deserved it? Because we can't be the most intelligent people as a collective. I mean, come on, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
If we deny access.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get off my soapbox.
No, that's okay. Those are all good points. So we're again, once again, living a rich life, talking uncomfortable conversations, part 2. We have Lanice Stevenson, Derek Chase, and the conversation and discussion has been very open. It's been very honest, and I wouldn't say it's been uncomfortable for us, but we've had some back and forth and good discussion. And I really think that's what everyone should be doing, and having these conversations, white, black, whatever, again, I'll say race. But as human beings, we should have these conversations to have a better understanding of what's happening and why there is such a disparity with some folks and how they perceive the Black community mainly. So let's keep it going. We're gonna keep the conversation going. Most recently, Jacob Blake. Are you familiar with that incident? So here at the heels of the deaths of Rayshard Brooks, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, this is just another, going back to police brutality. You shoot a man in the back 3 times in front of his kids. Now, 7 times. My mistake. So in front of his kids, right? So we talk about what gets instilled, right? They see these officers, these white officers, shoot this black man, and that's part of what they've been taking. So now they're going to be affected by that, most likely in the future. Chase, what are your thoughts? You have 2 younger sons.
Oh, well, I'll say a couple things. All right, we have to understand that we are the most feared human being in this country. When people come in contact with us, they come in contact with us with a preconceived notion based upon white supremacy, that we are savage, that we are violent, that we are lawless, all right, that we're uneducated, all right? So when you understand that that is the window that the world views you, I say of course, we don't view ourselves that way, but we have to be very, very cautious and understand that our goal is to survive the encounter. That's our goal.
Okay.
And when we do things that create an environment now these are normal things that anybody else could do, right? But when we do things that create an environment where people who are already fearing for their lives based upon a racist prism, that they see us through, all right? We have to have it as the expectation that they are going to do something that is less than lawful. And with that being said, we have to be on our P's and our Q's, because our responsibility is to tell our story and to create and architect a world where that is not the reality. All right? That is the reality right now.
Right,
So
right.
we cannot allow ourselves to continuously get shot by these mad men, these animals, because that's really what they are. All right? They are savage. All right? We cannot allow ourselves to be, at the hands of a merciless group of savages. So there is certain behaviors that we must exemplify. All right. Now, this does not give them an excuse or pass. No. What I'm saying is our first responsibility is self-preservation. All right. So when I come in contact with the law, number one, I know that they are law. So I have to respond to them in a manner in which says, in this power dynamic, all right, there's nothing truthful about the power dynamic. But you are in this untruthful power dynamic, you have all the power. So I'm going to submit to your authority. Although in reality, I am not submitting to your authority. I'm allowing my body to go through the motion of submitting to your authority with the understanding that it has no impact on my soul.
Okay.
All right. I'm not giving you my soul. I'm just going to submit my body to you. So I'm going to obey any lawful order from an officer. I'm going to say yes, sir. I'm going to say no, sir. All right. I'm not going to make any move unless I announce the move. When I come in contact with them, I'm immediately going to call someone, let them know, hey, listen, I am being held at such and such a place. Excuse me, officer, what was your name? Yes, this is the officer. Officer, say hello to my mom. Hey, officer, I'm gonna give you all of that. All right, because that gives me the best opportunity to come back and fight against it.
Gotcha. Okay. Lanice?
I agree, man. I absolutely agree. Man, I don't know how it feels to be a black man, but I have been, black woman.
Feels great, baby. You'll love it.
Let me ask you,
Rich, am I lying?
No, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It is.
A black man in a police encounter. I don't know how beautiful that is, but
okay. So let me ask this question.
Go ahead.
So the Jacob Blake, should he have maybe been more mindful in how he handled that situation? So apparently, again, I haven't seen all of that, but he must have been walking away from the officer to check on his kids. I think that's what I read. Doesn't warrant, again, if you shoot a man in the back, to me, you're a fucking coward to begin with.
I absolutely agree with that. I did not watch the video. I don't believe that I have to watch a video to experience, that moment. But like Chase said, anytime a police officer is asking you to do something, at that point, there's a power dynamic. He's no longer a citizen. He is the law. So you have to follow the law, whatever it is. We are citizens, and we are supposed to be law-abiding citizens. Now, I agree as well that you have to live to be able to fight against those things. And so I've been a victim of police racism and all of that. I was in Ocean City, and the police officer pulled me over, detained me for 3 hours. My son had to go to the bathroom. It was like 4:00 in the morning, dark. We were on our way to the air show, never made it. And I was so traumatized by that experience that I was afraid every single time a police car would come near me. What I say that to say that I cannot make a judgment on that young man, because I don't know if he has been impacted by police before and has been traumatized. So I don't know if he was acting out of trauma by an amygdala hijack at that point, and that's how he responded. So we tell ourselves that we have to go above and beyond, but then I don't know what the impact was. It took me over a decade to be comfortable enough to have a conversation with an officer without, my adrenaline rushing. And when my adrenaline rushes, I can't think. And then if I think that my kids are going to be harmed, mom comes into effect. You understand what I'm saying? So when we begin to deconstruct that situation,
Don't tell him what.
yeah, that's the only thing. That's why I don't want to make a complete judgment because I don't know all of those things.
And I would agree. Like, you know, that's not to make a judgment.
Yeah.
Am I on mute?
No, you talking. We hear you.
Okay, not to make a judgment on him. What I'm simply saying is that we're in a very critical time in this country. Like literally, like you have a group of people who hate us, and a lot of those people who hate us have found themselves in places where they have the authority to demonstrate. Like it's very intentional.
Right.
I hate you so much that I'm gonna put myself in position that if I ever had the opportunity to kill you, I will. Right? So in martial arts, right? You go through your drills and your katas in preparation for an attack. All right? So I already know how I'm gonna respond because I practice it. All right? And what I'm simply saying, as a part of our policy, until we get to the other side, it's just like a martial artist, we practice our katas of exactly what we're going to say to the police. All right?
Facts.
How we're going to hold our body. All right? Whether we're going to turn the light on or not turn the light on. Whether we're going to have our license available, license registration already available. We're going to practice our language, where our chin is, where our head is, and respect to what is visible to the officer. We're going to practice all those things. And that's not so much a judgment of him, but more so for an education of the rest of us. Right? Because the truth of the matter is that I've been arrested twice. I've been arrested 3 times for that. The first time I got arrested, I was 15 for that. I was 15 in Park Heights. You know how they come. I broke up a fight, same situation. I broke up a fight on the block. The police was late. At that point in time, my father was locked up. I was the oldest child in the house. My mother worked overnight. I had a sister, I had 2 sisters that I was responsible for. They show up late, you know, with disrespect, disregard, you know, on their lips. So I was asked to turn my music. I thought he said turn it down. He said turn it off. He pushed my sister Kizzy, and I pushed his ass down the steps, and I got locked up. All right? So that was the first time. The second time, because of that experience at Morgan with Ron Lawrence, I don't know if you remember Ron Lawrence.
Yeah.
Right? Ron Lawrence, they start harassing Ron. All right? Responding to my last encounter, I said, look, y'all out of order. All right? You don't have nothing else to do. And if you didn't have that badge and that gun, I will whip your ass. All right? And the guy says, okay, I'm gonna take the badge and gun off. So I'm about to shoot a fair one with him. The black officer came and locked my ass up. And I spent my time in Western District in a cell, which is a whole nother conversation, with a white man, a Chinese man, and me. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. All right? The next time I was arrested, I got arrested in New York City. I got in New York for a traffic accident. All right? Where I was driving on a suspended license, trying to get a job in New York. I was moving to New York. All right? And I had an accident. It was a bad accident. And I went straight to jail because I was driving on a suspended license and the man was seriously injured. The next time I went to prison, the jail, was a warrant that was served on me based upon the condition of the car that I had the accident on. They served it on me 2 years. I was supposed to go to court and do something, and I didn't do it.
Oh Lord.
I paid the fine. And they sent 20 officers to my house to serve the warrant. 20
For a damaged car.
For a damaged car.
Yeah,
the 5th time.
Lord.
So what I like to say is that I had my last, it had gotten so bad. I got a Mercedes. I used to get pulled out of black Mercedes, 4-door, a 500 SEL. I used to get pulled over all the time, right? And it got to the point where I talked to one of these ladies. She was into spiritual practices, and she gave me a prayer, and she said, in the prayer, I would become invisible to all officers of the law. And to that point, and she prayed with me, and she circled and saged me, and all the other things, and I stopped getting pulled over. All right.
I need to pray for my son. He about to start driving.
It sounds like, and that's a good segue.
I know, Rich, but here's the last point, and I'll be quiet on this note.
Right.
The reason that I had her to do that was I got pulled over in Washington, D.C. And from my vantage point, the officer, he made up a story. Rich, I lost it. I called him all out of his name. I was gone, bro. I was gone. And Cherie was on the other end. Calm down, please calm down. I'm like, I ain't calming down shit. I'm going to war. Whatever you want to do, this is where it's going down. And that officer looked at me in my eyes, and he saw that I was ready to take it there, bro. Mm-hmm. I was going to take it there without a shadow of a doubt. I was done with them and their whole process. And he said, sir, he says, this looks like this is not a good day for you. You have a good day. And he let me go.
I can see that, because like I said, when you get to that point, folks usually can tell that, because it's no longer an officer and a civilian. It's now, the wolf is hunting the wolf, so that becomes a problem, and it gets like that sometimes. So Lanice, you want to say something? We have roughly 2 minutes, and there's never enough time. I want to say thank you both for joining. But did you want to add into anything as it pertains to any other conversations that maybe we could talk about in the future, or anything at this point in time that we talked about today you want to add to?
Yeah, I would love for us to come back and really talk about the plan that needs to happen. And Dee, I want you to definitely talk about what you believe we need to do starting in Baltimore. Because what I see often is that we're so fragmented, and that things don't go the way they should.
Yeah.
And the collective efforts that we should have, we don't.
Agreed.
And so I experience cognitive dissonance every time I think about it. Because I'm like, we have some of the smartest, most talented people here. But then this person's doing this and this person's doing that. How do we bring everything together with no egos involved?
Yeah. I agree. And you know what, Chase, I just had an idea. You talked earlier, and things are going pretty well. Let's make sure that we talk about having that dinner, because I believe the garage is open, right? Your spot is open.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Oh, it is. Oh, I'm coming down.
And I think we're going to talk about. I think that'd be a good opportunity for me to host a dinner down there, and make that happen. I know you sent me a message.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
I definitely, when I think about all the guests that have been on Living a Rich Life and here on Be Exposed Radio, I've had some phenomenal guests, as everyone continues to call me and tell me and try to get on. So I thank you both as former guests and now joining the panel. Chase, let's talk about that. I'll come over. Cherie can cook some food. I mess with the boys, and I think I owe you a game of chess, but we're gonna make that happen in the coming months.
You owe me, bruh. You owe me.
We had a televised chess game, Lanice.
You did.
Yeah, I won a series
too, but I would love to watch y'all play.
Yeah, so it'll definitely be televised. But real quick, Chase, because I got to wrap up. Well, thank you both for joining. I want to definitely say it's been a pleasure. The conversation has been better than amazing. Chase, we're going to talk about hosting a party. Not a party, the chef experience.
Yeah, Black Chef.
Yeah. And we'll also incorporate. I want to incorporate having some of the conversation as to what that plan looks like.
Oh, Rich, that's the dollar. That's why we only have 20 people.
Yeah, 22 people. You told me. 22
people, but that includes us.
Oh, damn. Facts. So I'm gonna wrap it up again. I want to thank those that's watching and listening. This is Be Exposed Radio. I am your host, Rich James of Living a Rich Life. Continue to watch, continue to listen, continue to be inspired, and I want you to be inspired to live a rich life. Until next time, I am taking a week off just to kind of get some other things in order, and I'll use that time to get some other stuff in order and plan that dinner. So until next time, folks, stay well and stay healthy.
I had that in the middle school. I don't know why I didn't, figure it out, but those are the skills those are life skills,
And this is, and honestly, and I'm a teacher that I teach less and I give more life skills. And that's just how I've had to do it, because it's frustrating seeing children come into the classroom without basic knowledge of how to be respectful. But those things need to be taught at home. I should not be teaching you how to fold clothes in second period. That's not, no.
Oh,
I have to